In the close to future, Earth is slowly loss of life due to the fact of all of the harm humanity has prompted, and human beings are determined to escape. One day a large black sphere seems out of nowhere close to Mars, so 6 astronauts are dispatched to analyze on a spaceship referred to as Achilles. For 8 months the team spends the adventure and hibernation. Carla continues dreaming approximately her daughter and her mother, who tragically died in an automobile crash years ago. When there are best 8 hours left to attain the sector, the team is woken up. While they take a moment to stretch their muscle tissues and clean their heads, Carla notices that Ruben is instead rattled due to the fact this changed into his first time hibernating, and she advises him to relaxation. However, Ruben prefers to weblog his revel in considering the fact that he has a massive quantity of followers. Afterward, Carla meets with Commander Paul and they are trying mastering greater approximately the sector through scanning it. However, the deliverer's eye can't look. Tara thinks they should pass back. However, Paul desires to end their challenge anyway. The loss of records makes Ruben even greater apprehensive than he already is. The team makes a decision to touch Vance, the pinnacle of the excursion program, who tells them human beings on Earth are eagerly anticipating a solution to the mystery. They can't disappoint them, so the challenge should be completed. Sometime later, Carla begins a fall listening to her mother's voice within inside the quarters. However, she doesn't see anyone around. At the equal time, Ruben is startled awake through creepy whispers in his room. When Carla receives to her room, Vance video calls her, pronouncing he's concerned approximately her due to the fact she's been searching tense. As Carla assures him she's fine, that decision is all of a sudden reduced off and the deliverer's eye broadcasts the sector is inflicting an anomaly. Carla runs to the principal deck and unearths the mysterious sphere capturing a totally shiny beam of mild at the deliverer that's inflicting diverse troubles in the system. The relaxation of the team additionally runs to the deck and Tez factors out the mild appears to be a manner to expose the deliverer into pass. As the deliverer keeps to get closer, the eye selections up a noise coming from the sphere. When Carla analyzes it, they decode a message that again says Deus. This means that God in Latin. Ruben panics and asks the group to move return earlier than he runs out of the room. Carla thinks they need to pause the trip and wait till the eye fixes the compass so they are able to tell Vance of this in case it's an antagonist alien. However, Paul makes a decision they'll preserve going. Afterward, the group assessments on Ruben and unearths him crying with inside the corridor. He's nonetheless panicking and says the milder judgment they dispatched by way of means of God. He knows due to the fact the voice is instructing himself. Ruben asks for the task to be cancelled once more earlier than he leaves. Then the group discusses their theories and all thinks it's their responsibility to discover what this sphere is. If it seems to be an alien throwing them, they are able to simply blow it up. Paul is following the second canvas and calls off to the deck to tell him now no longer to say blowing up matters ever once more. When the deliverer is set to attain the sphere, both Carla and Ruben begin listening to the voices once more. Paul takes Carla to her room and here she explains she's been having complications when you consider that the auto crash. However, she doesn't point out the voices. Their talk is interrupted by way of means of Tez, who informs them Ruben is missing. Ignoring Elf's issues approximately his health, Carla joins the search. The crew splits and Tez receives to test the shipment bay, hidden in the back of a few containers. Ruben is surrounded by way of means of light as he does a ritual to thrill the voices in his head. His pores and skin is getting carved with a gaggle of spiritual symbols. When Tez eventually unearths him, she screams in horror, so Carla and Dolph run to find her. Unfortunately, by the point Carla receives there it's too late. Tez is useless at the ground with her guts out. Ruben notices Carla spying on him so he is taking her hostage, threatening to kill her too while Alf arrives. Sounding desperate, Ruben says they're past redemption and in the event that they land at the sphere they'll be a part of God's slaughter. He also claims that Paul is manifestly hiding something so they need to take the deliverer from him. At that moment Paul seems in the back of Ruben and shoots him without hesitation. right away killing him. Then he tells Ulf to get frame bags, now no longer displaying any emotion concerning the lack of group map. Carla follows Paul into the elevator and asks him if he in reality knows something. Paul denies it and receives irritated as he senses she desires to stop the mission. However, he reminds her that orders are orders. When they arrive at her room, Carla snaps and calls Paul out for behaving so coldly, approximately their fellow team members' deaths. However, Paul simply walks away. Instead of frame bags, Ulf makes a decision to position their bodies in their corresponding hibernation chambers. With best 3 hours left earlier than achieving the field, the group separates the primary Achilles body and remains in a smaller deliver to navigate via the sphere greater easily. Carla notices a few type of shape on the field, however can't apprehend what it is. When the deliver sooner or later lands on the field, the comms start running once more and the group receives a name from Vance. He informs them that 10,000 unidentified systems just like the one Carla saw have seen on Earth. However, they don't appear to be invading. Vance is satisfied the field is behind this and wishes the group to resolve the thriller as quickly as feasible. Paul orders Ulf and Carla to exit to investigate. However, Sean factors out they'll want a scientist and volunteers to move as well. The trio fits up and leaves the deliver even as Paul watches them at the cameras. The sphere is absolutely darkish so that they can't see what's inside the distance, and Carla's scanner can't select out up anything. When she touches the ground, she says it isn't in detail acknowledged on Earth. Paul sends them to check the shape, and with the aid of using seeing up near they realize it's a gate. Suddenly a vibrant mild starts sparkling in the gate, so Ulf fires a flare to take a higher have a take a observe the relaxation of the shape. They see an image called Event Horizon, which represents a boundary effect and observer. Carla calls it the give up of existence and scans the gate, confirming it's crafted from the identical cloth as the field. At that moment the group hears unusual noise, which shouldn't be feasible in a vacuum. Paul tells them that the delivers have picked up a transmission and is sending it to them via their communicators. This transmission says welcome. When the mild begins sparkling brighter, a lady seems within inside the center of the gate. The lady is sending out messages with her thoughts and the eye interprets them for the crew, revealing that this being claims to talk for the creator of all existence. This creator has come as a caution and to assist you giving humanity a choice. Folks who input the gate will discover everlasting peace, and Carla turned into the selected one to reveal them the way. Inside the gate they'll discover the stop of all struggling and pain. However, folks who pick now no longer to go into will die while the sector reaches Earth to spoil it. Suddenly the lady becomes Carla's mom and tells her that a person is waiting for her in the gate. A bowled over Carla walks into the mild and has a flashback approximately the car crash earlier, then locating herself close to a golden town with the coincidence wound nevertheless clean on her head. Her daughter is there and Carla runs closer to her. However, earlier than they are able to reunite, Carla wakes up on a desk with inside the deliver. After having a seizure, Carla throws up and wonders how she were given there. Ulf explains she may want to slightly stand while she got here out of the gate, so he delivered her back to the deliver. Unfortunately, Sean didn't make it. Their verbal exchange is interrupted through a name from Vance, who desires to recognize all of the details. Carla tells him approximately the Golden Town and compares it to Jerusalem, inflicting Ulf to name it heaven. She doesn't point out her own circle of relatives even if Vance maintains asking questions, now no longer believing her while she says she noticed not anything else. Once the decision is over, an indignant Paul leaves the room and Carla asks approximately Sean's death. Ulf explains his suit ruptured and Carla doesn't accept as true with considering that their fits are fabricated from a cloth that doesn't break. Then Ulf says Sean didn't staple his glove efficaciously and he decompressed. However, Carla doesn't purchase this, both considering that Sean turned into a completely experienced explorer. A very suspicious Ulf reminds her that everybody makes errors and tells her to rest. Carla desires to discover the sector once more, however Ulf informs her the delivery is already leaving and follows her out. When they attain a hall with no cameras, Ulf asks Carla what she truly noticed in the gate, so she tells him approximately her own circle of relatives. She additionally explains she doesn't accept as true with Vance and Paul, as it appears they're hiding something. Moments later Ulf returns to the deck and Paul asks him what befell while he and Carla had been out of the camera's reach. However, Ulf tells him Carla stated not anything new. Paul receives suspicious and reminds Ulf to appreciate his orders. Once the deliverer is out of the field's orbit, the eye pronounces the crew must be prepared to hibernate in a single hour. After grabbing Ruben's knife, Carla is going to the pods and examines Sean's body, mainly his suit. Next, she breaks the lock to Paul's room with the knife and is going internal to look for clues. Paul sees her on the safety cameras and sends Ulf after her. In Paul's room, Carla reveals a gun and some very thrilling files. Soon Ulf seems outside the room and Carla stops him by way of means of pointing the gun at him, having examined the files. Now she is aware of he's a former elite corps soldier and was once known for being the best, but Ulf explains planes that became left with inside the beyond and swears he doesn't realize something approximately the field. Carla forces Ulf to pass again to the principal deck, wherein she factors the gun at Paul instead. He